Good evening. This is the 9th episode of the Mobuku Chronicles, and it is November the 10th in the year 2011 AD, and what has happened since I last spoke with you? Because quite a bit has happened, like the Occupy Wall Street phenomenon and the continued, how can I put it, complete disarray in Europe with regard to Italy and Spain and Greece, and all that is a complete fiasco, and it's falling apart. As I said, these are just symptoms of the nation state smashing itself to pieces. And then we've had this MF Global debacle that took place at the end of October and is still ongoing, with like 600 million, maybe twice as much as that money has been stolen from the investors in that company. And of course this has been in the websites that I frequent. So I just want to read a couple of things here. First of all, before I forget, I mentioned last time that the Mexican government was, there was a bill in the parliament there to introduce silver as legal tender, and I did manage to have a couple of email exchanges with Hugo Salinas Price, and he later publicly made this commentary about this, and that the bill is stalled because there are about four Congress people in the Mexican government who do not want to go along with this, because the Mexican Central Bank is adamant that it should not go through. So that's the status of what's happening right now as far as that goes. But last time I talked about how, and this is a very important concept, I mean it's a real concept to keep in mind at all times throughout this following discussions that I'm going to be giving over the course of the next few episodes, is that money is to the social organism what blood is to the human organism. And what I just wanted you to always keep that in mind, because I'm going to be bringing in spiritual realities to do with the ego and the blood and so forth and so on. But what I want to do tonight, to start with, that there's a couple of pieces that were in tonight's blogs that I went to. One is called the TF Metals Report, and he quotes from another guy by the name of Jonathan Quinn, or Jim Quinn, of another website called The Burning Platform. And this is what Jim Quinn has to say tonight. When I consider all that is wrong in our society, I become despondent, angry, and despairing for the future of our country. It seems that everyone in positions of power across the spectrum of education, witness what happened with that other fiasco that took place this week, the Penn State nonsense, religion, finance, and politics, are psychopaths bent upon self-destruction, no matter the cost to society or unborn generations. Our nation has degenerated into an egocentric, self-loathing, vain, shallow excuse for a civilization. There's anger flaring up, but it is just likely to be misdirected and misinformed. The lack of critical thinking skills and the overwhelming effects of media propaganda has so degraded the intelligence of the population that when the system breaks down in the next few years, of course what he just said, the system is breaking down right now. What are they saying? It's already, I mean, it's been breaking down for a long time. What is he talking about? It's breaking down, but we're going to see the systemic breakdown very, very, how should we say, visible in the next couple of years, from 2012 to 2015. The masses will clamor for a savior rather than seeking truthful answers and willingly making the sacrifices required to get this country, our nation, back on track. This country will get what it deserves, a despotic ruler and a brutish civilization governed on the basis of principles. This is what happens when a society rewards lying and greed over honesty and compassion. There are consequences to actions and inactions alike. We've made our choice. That's what he has to say. That's Jim Quinn of the Burning Platform. Now this guy his name is John, and he's out of Denver, and he has a website called, actually it's a blog called The Golden Truth, or truthingold.blogspot.com. Fool me once, twice rather, shame on me. Fool me 3 or more times, shame on what? Insanity. I thought about this reading Ted Butler. Ted Butler is a person who has been very instrumental in my understanding of silver. But he has a serious blind spot, and he mentions this right here. And Ted Butler's latest news, they're discussing the MF Global situation and the problematic role of the commodities, or rather the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, who Ted Butler has actually called a criminal operation, and the Commodities Futures Trading Commission in this financial catastrophe. Butler ends by saying, to paraphrase, maybe this is the event that will get the CFTC, the event being this bankruptcy of MF Global, to crack down on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Watching Butler year after year espouse hope and optimism for the eventual reform of our system and the restoration of the rule of law and property rights with respect to our financial services is even more hilarious than watching the video of that, well, I'm not going to mention that particular phrase, governor from Texas in the debate last night. And you see, I don't watch any of this stuff. I mean, I think the political situation is just a complete circus. I mean, it's just a window dressing, and how people can believe that the elections make any difference. Well, I read a quote the other day. It was pretty funny. I think it was Indira Gandhi, I think, who said this, but I can't, don't quote me on that. But this is what the quote is. If voting made any difference, it would be outlawed. That pretty much sums up the situation right there. So, he goes on. Make no mistake about it, Butler does cutting-edge, brilliant analysis on every aspect of the technicals and fundamentals of the silver market. And he does that because I've been reading him for at least a decade now. And I'm going to get into silver in great detail during the course of this next few episodes. But for some reason he goes blank on his ability to analyze human nature and the completely corrupt nature of our system. It's gone way past the point of no return, and there will never be real change until the system collapses and a new one is formed from ground zero. Now, I'm here to talk about what this new system is going to be, if it's going to have any, shall we say, spiritual reality. But that's down the road a piece. We got to get through a few things first. One would have thought, after long-term capital management, way back in 1998, Enron, Refco, Amaranth, these are all companies that went bankrupt because of corruption and fraud and theft by the insiders. And you know, I mean, what's happening in the banking world essentially is that there's a criminal and corrupt banking system worldwide, and essentially what's happening is that the bankers who control these huge banking operations, you know, like Citibank and JP Morgan and Wells Fargo and Bank of America and Hong Kong Shanghai Bank and there's a few others, they're already basically trying to kill each other off and swallow up their opposition so that they can be the last man standing. That's what's going on. And nothing, they don't, you know, and they're ruthless. And so they don't want anybody to step in their way. So not only do the disasters get worse, the outright theft and corruption become more blatant. See, they don't care. They really don't care what you think, or what I think, or what anybody thinks, because they're above the law. One of the board members, this is a man by the name of Bart Chilton, was actually interviewed on King World News Report last week, and he said, yeah, there's been manipulation in the silver market, but you can bet your bottom dollar that there's no criminal investigation into racketeering and fraud and theft and, you know, violation of commodities futures trading law. There's not going to be any of that. Alright then, so that's what I wanted to say about what's happening now. I mean, it's like the year of ruthlessness is continuing. So now, you wonder why all this is happening. I mean, what are the causative factors involved in the breakdown, the smashing itself to pieces of the nation state? Well, there are many threads to that. The first one I've talked about already is the food. Now remember, it is said by the greatest, wisest, deepest spiritual civilization that has ever existed, that for those creatures that have a physical body, food is the chief of all things. Therefore, while we live in the physical body, food is of more significance to human life and human endeavor than any other single factor. Okay, so I wanted to remind you about that, and remember to go back if you haven't seen earlier episodes, because I talked the first 7 episodes. That's all about the food aspect. Now, so that's one causative factor, the breakdown of the civilization. I mean, of the nation state, and it's smashing itself to pieces. The other one is money. Now here, I'm going to talk about the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve is an institution, it's a private corporation. Remember, it's a private corporation. It's not traded on the stock market. It doesn't, it is completely opaque, no transparency, and it works with the U.S. Treasury to, shall we say, manage, if you could call it that, the economy. But that's really not what its purpose is. I mean, that's the ostensible purpose. I mean, that's what they say. You know, the mandate of the Federal Reserve is to